Alright guys, so on this one we're going to be talking about the zeros of a linear function. And y'all, zeros of linear function, that is just a fancy way of saying what is the solution of your function, what is the root of your function, what is the x-intercept of your function. All of those things mean the exact same thing. So a solution is the same thing as a root, which is the same thing as a zero, which is the same thing as an x-intercept. So if they ask you for the zero and they give you a graph, then your zero is simply the x-intercept. Where does it cross the x-axis, okay? So if you're given a graph and they ask you for the solution, the zero or the root, it's the x-intercept. Now, given an equation, simply plug in 0 for y or f of x, whichever one they have written there, and solve for x, because that's your solution. Which is, if y is 0, that's your x-intercept, okay? That's what an x-intercept means. What is x when y is 0? So to find the zero of number 1, I'm going to plug 0 in for f of x. Got my x. And solve for x. So I add 5 over. I get 5 is equal to 5 halves x. And then I get rid of this times 5 halves by multiplying by the reciprocal of 2 over 5. Alright, and 5 times 2 is 10. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So 2 is equal to x. So 2 is my zero, my root, my solution, my x-intercept, however I want to say it. Looking at number 2, I'll do it the exact same way. Plug in 0 for f of x and solve for x. Okay? So I take 4 away first. It's a simple two-step equation. 0 minus 4 is negative 4 equals my negative 2x divided by my negative 2. Negative 4 divided by negative 2 is a positive 2. I just realized I got 2 for both of them. Total coincidence. Okay, so if they ask me to interpret the 0, so this is what the ordered pair looks like, x comma 0. So you have an x value when your y is 0. So it simply tells you how many x values you have when y is 0. And whatever that, so it's how many shirts you have when you spent 0 money, things like that. Whatever the x value is when y is 0. Now, reminder about domain and range. Domain is all your possible x values, what makes sense for your x values, which has to do with what is x value what is the x talking about, so make sure you're paying attention to that label. And then what are all the possible values for your y's, for your range. So let's look at a word problem and really kind of dive into what that domain and range means. So it says, Kendra's class is selling greeting cards to raise money for new soccer equipment. They paid $115 for the cards, and they are selling each card X for $1.75 a piece. Write an equation, so they paid $115 originally, and each card after that is $1.75. They're selling these cards for $1.75, so they're profiting. So write an equation to represent the profit Y, to write the equation, find the 0, and describe what it means, and identify the domain and range. Okay, so if I'm going to write an equation, I'm going to kind of scoot my paper down here so I can start on a new sheet. But if I'm going to write an equation, then I'm going to write my equation in slope-intercept form. So I have my profit Y equals whatever number goes with the word each, so the 175 for each card, which is represented with an X. Now they paid $115 for the card, so that's going to be, you're going to take that away from whatever they bring in to figure out what they profited. Not add it, because they didn't bring it in. They didn't make that, they actually paid that. So we need to take that away from how much money they brought in to figure out their profit. So this is the first piece of writing an equation. Find the 0. I'm going to let y be 0 and solve for x. So I add my 115 over. 0 plus 115 is 115. Okay, I divide by my 1.75. Okay, and then 115 divided by 1.75 is approximately 65.71. Okay. All right, so what does this mean? So if I write this out, this is my solution, this is my x-intercept, so what does this mean? So if I write this out as an ordered pair, I have 65.71, comma, 0. So remember, x was each card, okay? So we can't, we'll say if you sell, so what does it mean? If you sell approximately, with my squiggly line, 65, we'll just say 65 because you can't get to 75 cards. Can't do 65.71 of a card. So if you sell approximately 65 cards, if you have 0 profit, you're not in the hole, but you haven't made anything either. So you break even. Okay. So if you sell approximately 65 cards, that's what's going to make you somewhere in between 65 and, well, really, you would have to sell 66 cards to break even, because if you sell only 65, you will not have broken even yet. So just some kind of things to kind of make your mind think. So it just tells you at this amount, 65.71 cards sold, you will have made 0 money. You will have profited 0 money, because that's what the Y means, profit. And the X is each card. So for 65.71 cards, you profit 0 money. Now domain, let's talk about that domain. So what are the possibilities for my X values? Well, X represents cards. Well, you can't sell negative amounts of cards, okay? So X, well, you can't sell negative amounts of cards, and you can sell however many cards they bought, which we don't know how many that is, okay? We're going to say that you can have any amount, or all, let's say all positive real numbers. I'm sure we do have a limit because they didn't buy infinity cards, but we don't know if they only bought 100 cards, and that means you can sell anywhere from 0 to 100 cards, but they have to be whole numbers. Okay, all positive, let's say all positive whole numbers instead, sorry. All positive whole numbers. Okay, if they bought 100 cards, you can sell 0 all the way up to 100. It has to be positive whole. You can't have negatives, you can't have decimals. That's the main piece. Now, your range, we need to figure out if they didn't sell any, so that means, let's look at our equation. If they sold 0 cards, where would they be? Well, 0 times here cancels that term out, and they would be at negative 115. So
Rachel Campbell, if you're in the building, please come to the office.
So if they sold 0 cards, then they would be at negative 115. Their profit would be at negative 115. So their Y can be anywhere between negative 115 and all the way up. Okay, so let's rewrite that, because it could top out if we sold 100 cards. You could figure out how much profit that would bring in, but once again, we don't know how much they sold. So your range can be anywhere greater than or equal to negative 115. Okay, because they can't. That's where they would be if they sold 0, and then we don't know what their limit is on how many they purchased. So it can go up from there. Okay, so just a little bit about how to find the 0, what does it mean, how to interpret it, and how to come up with domain and range. All right, have a fantastic afternoon.